Start Block D, I have already gone File, New, and then File Save to save my block into my blocks folder as Block D. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in down near the feet of my reference person, start with a rectangle, pull it in an obvious rectangle to find which one gives me my width. My numbers are showing me that's the first number. The width of the block that I'm going to draw is 100 millimeters, comma, and the depth is 58. I'm then going to pull this block up 52 millimeters to create the base block for Block D. I'm going to end up cutting parts of this away as well as adding parts to make the block. But this is my start. Rotate myself around and look at the top of the block, looking at the upper right-hand corner or rear right-hand corner. I start a box there, and I'm going to again pull an obvious rectangle. I still have width as my first number and depth as my second number, which is helpful to know. The width in this case is 37, and the height in this case is 28. So 37 by 28 is the size of the cutout that I want to make. So once I've drawn that, I'm going to switch over to push-pull again, and I'm going to click this area. Now as I have it going up and down, I'm going to actually orbit myself around to the point where I can click the bottom's face, where it says on face here. You'll notice that completely deletes that whole section. If you have anything left over, you did not do this step right, and you need to redo it. You need to redo a step. Under Edit is Undo. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to set up my cut from this area right here. As I measured my block, I have 25 millimeters of space that this goes up, and then the catty corner cut goes from this corner right here down. So really what I'm going to do to find this angle is come up 25 millimeters and basically play connect the dots. This is something that SketchUp will let you do. I'm essentially going to click this endpoint and draw up along the edge 25 millimeters. And what that does is that gives me an endpoint now right here, 25 millimeters up. I'm now going to draw from this endpoint to the corner right here. Now that I've found that angle, I'm going to use push-pull to push this across, rotate around, come all the way to that face so that that goes away. And again, I used the inside because that had the corner. I cannot do the same thing on the outside because this corner at the point where I started did not exist. As I roll around to look at the top, I know that the part that sticks out the top is along a center line. So as I count where this is located, I find that it is in the center from top to bottom, and 33 millimeters from the end is the center point of my circle. So if I go to the midpoint and I draw 33 millimeters, that gives me the center point of my circle. My circle has a diameter of 10, or a radius of 10 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and click here and draw with my radius at 10 millimeters. At that point, I'm at least going to get rid of this section right here. Now, I really only need a part of this circle. So what I will end up doing is taking the rest of this, which is, that's 10. Sorry, I thought I had this figured out. Hang on just a sec, that's 10, that's 3, that's 7. Okay, so it's 20 overall, so it's 10 millimeters more further back. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line along this for 10 millimeters. That again gives me an endpoint. I'm then going to draw a line on the green axis in this direction and in the green axis in this direction. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to find this endpoint here, and as you can see, it's like basically the 6 o'clock position on this circle. And I'm going to draw that straight back and cross my lines. You could stop at the line, but just to show how things work, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to then get the one up from up here and do the same thing. What I've done now is I have the shape that I want, which is this half circle part rectangle, but it's in a bunch of different line segments, so I have some stuff to get rid of. Using the pointer tool, I can click on an end, and as long as the two things have touched, it'll leave this as its own line segment now that I can delete. Do the same thing here. If I accidentally click a surface, oh, that's giving me some problems. We'll come to that in a minute. I'll try to get rid of this piece, which it let me do. This piece should be able to get rid of that part circle, and then that lets me get rid of that endpoint. Now I have an enclosed space right here. Actually, I don't. After figuring out what the problem is, it brought up an interesting concept. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my error in from the previous half of the video to show you what's going on. As I click here, you can notice that my shape that I drew is not actually sectioning off an area. I actually know that based on the fact that the lines are thicker and darker. This happens every once in a while when you use a method like I did, where you overlap a bunch of lines and trim away what you don't want. Sometimes it doesn't essentially fully close as far as the software is concerned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a line. And in this case, when I deleted this line before, and then used my pencil tool to draw from the endpoint to there, and drew that line back in, you'll notice that all of a sudden my lines got much thinner. And now as I click, I do have two separate areas. This is what I'm looking for overall. So now I'm going to splice these two videos together, as you'll have already seen. I now can push-pull this area up 18 millimeters. The last feature of the block is the hole that's in the side. We have a hole that's down here that the center of it is 32 millimeters over and 25 millimeters up. So I'm going to actually use a rectangle tool to draw a box that is 32 wide and 25 high. This gives me the center of my circle. If I get my circle tool now, I can click on there and give my hole the radius of 10 millimeters, as it is. I'm going to want to remove these lines first before I do any pushing and pulling, again, to make sure that I have a closed section. What you just saw me do was the reason that I never use the eraser tool, because sometimes you accidentally miss clicking on the thing you want to delete. The eraser tool makes that a little bit more of a problem. What we're going to do now is push-pull this in 5 millimeters. Especially when you're doing something like this, it sometimes helps to look at your shape from an angle. And I'm going to click this and make sure I'm going in as I type 5 and enter to create block D. As we've done in the past with our blocks, our next job is to go ahead and click our reference person and delete her. Hit zoom extents to make sure the block is the only thing in the drawing, and hit save. This block is now ready to be set up on a drawing.